Wake up, wake up. It is NFL Draft Eve, Wednesday, April 24th. Welcome back here, Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger. Like and subscribe. And Larry, it's like we're a couple of expecting fathers ready to jam cigars into the mouths of all 49ers fans. The new Niner will very likely be born tomorrow. And I'm sick and tired of like gender reveal parties. And I'm ready to just meet the damn new kid, aren't you?
Follow the star in the sky, and you will know where the next Niner will be brought to Earth. Yeah, follow the star. It's an exciting time.
And myrrh, is that what we're bringing the new pick, Larry?
That's right. We are the wise men, or maybe not so wise. But yes, the NFL draft is here, and it is the Super Bowl of the offseason. It's huge, and it's always huge for everybody, because it's the bloodline to the sport. You don't get good unless you draft your way to it. And it's true in every sport. The Warriors proved it with Steph Curry and Harrison Barnes and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. And, they drafted their core. The Yankees, Sabian in the mid-90s, early 90s, drafting guys like Derek Jeter and Andy Pettitte and Mariano Rivera. And, you build your core through the draft. The Detroit Lions with Brian Branch and the tight end, who's amazing from Iowa. And, they Penei Sewell and Aiden Hutchinson. And, they've been able to build through the draft. So that's the way it's done. You build through the draft. And for the 49ers, it's huge. It's crucial because this is the final year of Brock Purdy on the rookie contract. Suddenly their budget's going to get a whole lot tighter coming up in the year following, and they need to hit in this draft so that they are able to say goodbye to some costly veterans and replace them with guys on rookie contracts.
And look, saying goodbye to a very liked player right now is a reality that I know we're going to get into. Everyone might have a little Brandon Aiyuk fatigue, but the issue is about to reach, its intersection, and the big choice will or will not be made. And we'll know more about that again in the next 24, 48 hours. But, John Lynch was talking about how this is, nothing's better in the NFL than game day. But for GMs tomorrow, that's their game day. And he really looks forward to this. I know it's something that you and I look forward to as well. And fans have glommed on to this in a way that I don't even think the NFL could have really imagined that they would be interested in it. The NFL has turned this into a lavish celebration of football. It
wasn't that long ago. It wasn't even on the radio. And now it's in primetime television slots.
Oh, right. I mean, I remember like sitting around KNBR and Lee Hammer saying, we'll take the pick live, but we're not going to go to any other pick, And it's like, geez, Lee, this is like the biggest thing happening in sports right now. We can either broadcast it or not. And it was like, the answer was no back then. It's grown into something I don't even think the biggest NFL fan and supporter could have ever imagined it would be. And here we are. We're at Event Horizon. It begins on 5 o'clock East Coast. 5 o'clock our time, 8 o'clock East Coast time on Thursday, live from Detroit, where the weather isn't great right now, but that's not going to stop everyone from going into that huge dome that they build, which becomes Draft Central. And look, there's so much talk about this is the player. This is my definitive answer. It's hard to be definitive about anything, especially, except for the Chicago Bears, who get the first pick in the draft. No one else really gets to be definitive about much else.
And their GM, Ryan Poles, is like, they're like, are you going to draft Caleb Williams? And he's like, tune in Thursday night. Exactly. So I think maybe there might be a league-wide memo, Damon, that circulated that we weren't privy to that said, hey, guys, we've got a huge TV show and we have a huge TV network. Let's not give away anything. Let's just tell everybody tune in at 5 o'clock West Coast time on Thursday, and we can find out together. You know what I mean? They don't even want to give away Caleb when we know Caleb's the only quarterback the Bears have met with, and they've been setting up their team, and he's been meeting with their players, and it's a fait accompli. He's a Bear. But Ryan Poles doesn't even want to give that away, so nobody wants to give anything away. They want you to watch the show.
Well, and there's a huge tug of war between journalists and their networks or their outfits about tipping picks or going with what you know, and
I hate
or
that, by the way.
or beating the network to the actual onstage announcement. And yeah, that's not how.
You should be flogged, Damon. If you tip picks, you should be flogged.
You're anti-tipping pick. Like, to me, it's
Well,
it's
it's
ollie
just like
ollie oxen free. Whoever can get it first and get it right wins.
I know, but I mean, I did draft shows with guys who would sit there and watch, watch the tip picks on, whoever's tipping them that day and be like, you know what? I'm thinking they may go safety here. And blankety blank team goes safety. You're a genius.
Right.
This guy's a genius.
Yeah, if you're trying to use somebody else's inside information to pretend that you were right about something, that's
Right.
lame. You can't.
That's lame.
That will not be
I
allowed.
see an SEC receiver, Xavier Legette. Oh my God, Krug's a freaking Nostradamus. I hate that. Don't play that game. And if you do a draft show, don't play that game. I think it could be a Big 12 tackle. Oh, here comes it's Tyler Guyton.
Stein Tori Hell. Good afternoon from Norway. Hey, good morning from San Francisco. It's great to have everyone in. Like and subscribe. And Larry, as you know, as my audience knows, I was just in Las Vegas. I was seeing Fish, and look, there's a lot of corniness about Fish that I won't run past you. But one of their lyrics is, "The trick is to surrender to the flow. Just let it happen. You can't control the night. You can't control the concert. You can't control the set list. You can't control the drugs that you might be on. The trick is to just sit there and surrender to the flow."
That sounds almost like, hey man, no matter what you take, don't get paranoid. No matter what drugs you take, don't get paranoid and wig out.
Just chill out, man.
Just ride it out, man.
Surrender to the flow, man.
Get a glass of water and maybe sit down. How was it? Because I'll say this, some of the video that I saw on X from the first day of the Fish show from the Sphere, I mean,
Larry,
the graphics, the sky, it's just, it looks like just, if you do you even need drugs to kind of?
The Sphere does your drugs for you. You don't need anything. You can go in there with Tic Tacs and water and feel like you're on acid. That's how unbelievable that thing was.
Save some money there.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't believe what I could have saved with Tic Tacs and water. But look, we'll get into it at the end. We'll wrap up with it. I'll give the Ralph Barbieri review of the Sphere.
The thing about it, Damon, is I told Tom, I told Tate, it's round. It's totally round. They call it the Sphere, but they can call it the round. It is round. It is round.
But, the key word for an evening like that, or what the trick is to surrendering to the flow really is, it's about fluidity. And that's what the draft is. Like, the Niners can go in with the single best laid plans that they can come up with, but they've got 30 moving pieces in front of them before they're even allowed to move their piece on the chessboard, unless they get aggressive and, consummate a trade. But if they let it come to them, I think that there's a lot of merit and options in there for them. And, you staying true to your own board, that's where the conviction comes in. And the temptation to acquiesce to what you're afraid another team's about to do. So you got to get aggressive in that particular moment. You got to have conviction about what you believe in and who you believe in, but you also got to be very fluid and ready to adapt at all times. And that's what makes this fascinating. That's really where the drama that ESPN is selling to us lies. It's all the moving parts. It's all the phone calls that, you don't see, and all the behind the scenes positioning. And that's where the fun of this is. That's where the drama is. And
it's reality TV. And John Lynch said it the other day. By the way, this is our first draft without the great Chris Mortensen, who was a major staple of the draft. I loved Mort. R.I.P. Mort. And we're going to miss him for sure. But yeah, Shanahan, Lynch made that point the other day, Damon, that, you gotta you got to be ready to act in real time. You better discuss some scenarios, and you better be able to think clearly on the clock. Teams oftentimes wait until you're on the clock to make offers because they know some teams flinch and some teams make bad decisions on the clock. I think it's going to be really interesting to see. The Niners have, if you read Mike Silver, and we'll get into it, are definitely still very much in play on Brandon Aiyuk trades, and they're playing chicken. How much of the contract are the Niners willing to pay to get a good draft return? How much is the team that's willing to trade for him willing to take on? And then excuse me, a little bit of a cold during draft week. There's the desperate teams. Like, who wants Aiyuk? It's a loaded wide receiver draft, as you kind of mentioned. We've mentioned many times. The team that wants Aiyuk is the team that the guy's going, the coach or the GM's going to be fired at the end of the year, and they can't take a chance on a rookie receiver. And rookie receivers take time. For every Randy Moss, there's 75 guys who hit the league and struggle in that first year. It's more common than not. So you could get a great receiver in the draft and you could hit. But if that guy doesn't come of age until year 3, Trent Baalke, you could be out of a gig, or somebody in Pittsburgh could be out of a gig, or somebody in Indy could be out of a gig, or somebody in Washington could be out of a gig. So it's going to be who flinches, who wants the all-pro receiver, who wants the sure thing over the speculative asset. And it's going to make Thursday night and maybe even the beginning of Friday night really, really juicy. And I'm looking forward to the whole thing.
Like and subscribe, and Larry and I are going to have an invitation for you to join us at the Dubliner West Portal on Friday for rounds 2 and 3. We're going to be doing a live show from upstairs in the pool room, and we're going to be coming on down and hanging out and drinking Guinness and hanging out with fans. So the first round begins too late for us to go there and get a lot out of it, especially with the Niners picking at 30. It would be a little too late for all involved. But we're going to be there on Friday from 4 till the end of the second round. We will be live in the room, obviously. We will be going live on YouTube. I know both of us will be stepping away from that live broadcast to do some other videos that we need to feed the old content beast of what we're doing over here, Larry. But it's going to be an awful lot of fun. Friday,
come drink with us.
West Portal.
Come drink, come eat, come party, come celebrate round 2 and round 3. So, we've been talking about different plans for the draft, and people are like, hey, why don't you guys get together at a bar? So round 1, no. Round 3, day 1, no. Day 3, no. But day 2 was just right.
It is.
The porridge was a little too hot. The porridge was a little too cold. Friday, the porridge was just right. So we're going to get together at the Dubliner. Join us in West Portal. Stop by, have a drink, barf in a bag. Let's talk some Niners.
It's going to be an awful lot of fun. It really is. So come on out. And again, West Portal's Dubliner is very, whatever you want. Hit Uber Eats and they'll bring it to you. You can eat it right in there. Maybe
I'll get G-Rad to stop by. He only lives a block away. He can come over. Come on. What are we talking about? We're talking about quarterbacks. Come on.
Who does Gary love more, me or the draft, Larry?
You know what? I think Gary, the draft, right? I mean, come on. Let's talk about it. Come on. Go ahead. Who are the Niners going to pick? Go ahead.
Go ahead, Larry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Come on. You know the O-line.
Let's have one more stab at this Aiyuk conversation. But we hope to see everybody at West Portal.
Yes, join us in West Portal.
Dubliner West Portal. It's going to be an awful lot of fun.
And don't barf in a bag.
Don't barf in a bag. And go outside and throw up on the street like a decent human, please.
Or in a bush. Throw up in a bush.
I don't know if there's an easily available. Run out to the middle of the street and throw up on the Muni tracks. Like, just get it out of the walkway. It's all we're asking for.
But we've done the meet and greets before, and they're very, very popular. We've had, some of your Plus 2, I think, probably drew about 100 people on a rainy day, on Geneva. This is West Portal, easily gotten to public transportation. You could BART into Muni. You could Muni into West Portal, and you can stop by and drink beers with us and talk football. It should be fun.
It's going to be an awful lot of fun. One more stab at this Aiyuk conversation, right?
All right, let's do it again. From the top. We'll do it live.
I want everyone to think of a GM as a magician.
Doug Henning.
Yeah, absolutely. David
Blaine.
Dougie Henning. You go. Do we have any other famous? Who's it? Chris Angel, the mind freak. You know that guy.
David Blaine. I'm gonna take Brandon Aiyuk and I'm gonna put him into a tiny bottle right here, and you're not even gonna see it. Now close your eyes. No, do you mind if I burn a piece of your shirt off? No, okay. I'm gonna light that shirt. Oh, look at that. You've got a tattoo of Brandon Aiyuk on your shoulder. And what's your dog's name? Don't say it. Don't say it. Just think about it. Scooter. Oh my God. Oh, my mind is blown. That guy, David Blaine.
There's dude, apparently he banged them all for a minute there. Like he was going through Hollywood A-listers for a while. Like David Blaine. I don't know.
I'm going to make my private part disappear inside you. Hold on. Wait a second. What's your dog's name? Think of it. Don't say it. That guy. That guy's mysterious. The greatest one, he goes to New York Knicks practice, right? Did you see this one? This is when Allen Houston was a Knick. He goes to New York Knicks practice. He has cards. He's like, take a card. So he takes a card. Then he flips the deck up in the air. Now cards all go on the ground. And Allen Houston is thinking of his card. And he's like, tell him your card so you know. And then he goes like this. He goes, there's a bunch of basketballs laying around. And he's like, hey, somebody throw me a basketball. And like, it's like, he picks up just one random ball on the floor. And then he goes, does anybody have a knife? And he's at New York Knicks basketball practice. Like 9 guys had a knife. It was like, yeah, I got a knife. So he takes the knife, jams it into the basketball, deflates the basketball, reaches into the basketball, and pulls out Allen Houston's card. And Allen Houston's like, whoa, oh, my mind's blown. Anyway.
You're evil, David. It's funny when people get like really creeped out and they think they got a mystic among them. It's a magic trick. And I love good magic tricks. And David Blaine
he's really good, though. He's really good.
He is really good. I mean, that in-person sleight of hand thing is fantastic. But really, I want you to think about a general manager as a magician. And what we have here is a lot of misdirection and a lot of subterfuge. And while you're focused on this hand over here because it's on the center of the stage, it's really this hand over here that's doing the magic trick. And John Lynch, has been very forward, public facing, talking about how Brandon Aiyuk is a career Niner in his mind. And Mike Silver's got people's feathers ruffled by writing a story saying, well, behind the scenes, they are very much open for business on Brandon Aiyuk, which runs counterintuitive to everything that he is showing you with the magic hand that is facing upstage. Brandon Aiyuk is a career Niner, is the magic trick he's doing in front of you. But behind the scenes, he's working the phones, he's taking calls, he's gauging options. And this is the smart thing to do. This is what all smart general managers do. Remember, a guy who is brand new on the job in his very first draft, Mike Dunleavy, 24 hours before Jordan Poole was traded, he's talking about how he sees Jordan Poole being a career Golden State Warrior.
I think he could be here for the next 4 or 5 years. He wasn't there for the next 4 or 5 days.
Didn't even make it 4 or 5 BART stops until he was on an airplane heading out to DC.
Well, you got to maintain leverage. If you're talking about trades with teams around the league, does it help you to say, you know what, we're trying to find a home for him? No, you're devaluing your assets. So he wants everybody to feel that the Niners can keep Brandon Aiyuk and will if they don't get their price.
Right.
But only he knows how eager they are to move him. Only him and Shanahan really know. And to me, the Silver piece is interesting from the standpoint of not only will the Niners want a first-round pick, it sounds like there's a belief that they may even take a high second-round pick and another pick or player, which makes me feel like they're very motivated to move him. even though he's their best receiver. But there's a deep receiver group. They got a tough cap, and they got to make some tough decisions. The one thing that also makes me kind of think he could be moved is that Brock Purdy, who's not necessarily all that skilled at doing the sleight of hand thing, has already spoken twice and has spoken, really about Brandon in the past tense. I mean, Guy Haberman and I talked about this yesterday. He had the quotes. He was reading them to me. It was like, he's literally talking about Brandon Aiyuk in the past tense. And when he was asked about Aiyuk, he finishes up by saying, I've got confidence that John and Kyle can find the right pieces that can make this offense go. Well, it's like, that to me sounds very much like they may move him. So we'll see. We're going to find out one way or another in the next couple of days.
And look, there's a group of 49ers fans who seem to, I don't know, Larry, they hang out more on your channel than they do on my channel. And maybe this is what will happen when my channel grows to the size of your channel. You just, when more people are in the bar, you got more randos, you got more personalities in the bar. And it's not this cool group, tiny group. It's a larger group, and you don't know who's in the group. But you got an awful lot of anger and pushback for saying, you're just trying to do clickbaity type of, you're looking for clicks. Well, first of all, we're all on YouTube and you're clicking. So yeah, there is an element of truth. We're all trying to get you to watch our channel.
But we're not selling
We're
out.
not making shit up to get you to watch. What we are is, I think insiders is a disgusting word. I don't like it. But what we are is informed. And what we are is guys who've been, professionally around these teams for the better part of 20 years and have conversations and just a little experience. There was a funny New Yorker cartoon that captured the entire internet in a single cartoon. It's two people sitting at the table. One's talking to the other, and it says, "Let me interrupt your expertise with my confidence." And there's an awful lot of that. There's an awful lot of that goes on when you talk about a player that people really like and like for all the right reasons. Everyone who is a Niner fan should be a Brandon Aiyuk fan. You should be.
He's awesome.
The business of football sometimes interrupts relationships in football. You've heard the phrase cap casualty. That is a phrase that could be very well applied to this. And as Larry and I have continued to talk about it, we haven't done so for attention. We've done so to paint the picture as it really should be viewed. So
last year, just remember last year.
Emotions a little bit. You have to become unemotional on draft day when you're thinking about trading players. And just because people are confident that Brandon Aiyuk should stay, it doesn't make it so.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know what's going to happen. I have no inside sources. I'm not. I would never claim to have inside sources on this, but I would say this: last year at this time, I was getting tons of people in the, you hate Trey Lance. Why do you hate Trey Lance? It's like, dude, can you separate, loving Trey Lance or not liking Trey Lance from predicting he's going to be traded? I still like Trey Lance, but I was predicting that he was going to be traded. And I was predicting he was going to be traded during the draft because I really felt like that was the moment. They shopped him during the draft, and we found out later in August that was the case. They ultimately pulled the trigger in August. Nobody wanted to hear it. They just wanted to hear Trey, when it was pretty clear that they were committing to Brock to me. And so I kept saying, hey, you know what? The guy's going to be traded. And I kept getting, Krug, will you stop beating this stop beating this drum. Stop beating this dead horse. He's not going to be traded. He's going to compete. Brock's going to miss the first 6 weeks. He's going to play. They're going to need him. They're not going to trade him. They shopped him. They were trading him. They wanted to trade him. And finally in August, they did. So all I'm saying is, nobody wanted to hear that, and nobody wants to hear the Aiyuk thing now because Aiyuk is the Niners' best receiver and Brock's number one option. But as you said, Damon, it's just like anything else. It's like everybody, me, you, almost everybody has to live within some form of a budget, and the Niners are no different. And they've budgeted, let's say, $20 to $25 million in that range a year for Brandon Aiyuk. Well, he probably wants to get between $25 and $30 million. So that's way, way outside their budget. And all Lynch wants to say is, hey, we've had good talks. We've had good talks, but that just means they're amicable. Hey, we're willing to pay you 23. Hey, we want 28.5. Well, hey, we're not, we don't want to pay that, and if the Niners view it as an impasse and that they're never going to get close to, the ask, let's say from Aiyuk and his agent, they can either, let it sit there in the corner of the room, make him play on his 5th-year option and maybe turn their chemistry south, which is a major risk. They can let him walk then at the end of the year and take a 3rd-round compensatory selection, or they can be proactive and get more than that 3rd-round compensatory selection and move on a year early and in a loaded wide receiver draft, attempt to replace him. So, Daniel Jeremiah piggybacked the Silver thing today by saying that he's hearing Indianapolis, who, Chris Ballard and John Lynch have, Greg Papa was on with me last night, and he mentioned how Chris Ballard and John Lynch are friends and have done business before. And then there's, Trent Baalke, who maybe is fired at the end of the year if they don't get a receiver, and they need to maximize Trevor Lawrence. And so how do you do that? Probably by getting him a top-tier receiver. So they're sitting at 15 for Indy and 17 in the first round for Jacksonville. Then there's Pittsburgh at 20. And I actually think that the team that could be the most viable could be the Washington Commanders, who have 2 high 2nd-round picks and Jahan Dotson. And they could easily put together a package. They got 5 picks in the top 50. They could easily put together a package. And what was that Jaden Daniels, Aiyuk thing? In 5 days from now, there's going to be a gigantic party. I kind of think it's going to be the Commanders taking Daniels at 2 and looking to trade some package of picks in round 2 and 3 to the 49ers for Aiyuk. So I think,
if you think
they're really live in this.
Like take what we just watched, basically a young quarterback found himself a great target in Brandon Aiyuk. And if you're the Commanders, bringing in Brandon Aiyuk to help groom your brand new quarterback seems like a smart move. Again, the Adam Peters connection is right there. That makes sense too. But as you're saying, Daniel Jeremiah said that he keeps on returning to 2 teams as the most likely dance partners, and it's the Colts and the Jaguars. Again, getting back to the Mike Silver column, he's just saying that the situation is fluid, and it should be. It really should be. I mean, and that's what you want your team to do. It is not disloyal to Brandon Aiyuk for the 49ers to be getting any and all options in front of them and on the table. That's the job. And, I keep on.
And if it's for a receiver they've decided they can't afford. I mean, that's the thing. We know that we like the receiver. That's all we know. We don't know what. For all we know, he's asking for Justin Jefferson money, and Jefferson hasn't even gotten paid. But the speculation is he's going to make north of $30 million. What if Aiyuk wants $30 million a year? So, I mean, the 49ers have to at least consider all options here. And, John Lynch, a year ago, we do these things every year. A year ago, he had the same presser, and I went down there and I said, John, is there any scenario in which you would trade Nick Bosa? And before I could even get the question out, he's like, no, that when we put an answer to that, there's no scenario. Nick's here. And he looked away like, that's it, bottom line. This year, when he was asked about Brandon Aiyuk, he's like, I anticipate he'll be on the roster. And when Matt Mayoko asked him, hey, have you given the agent permission to shop a trade around the league? He's like, I don't want to get into it. He cut it right there. Well, why do you not want to get into it? Because the answer is yes. Because the answer is yes, and he doesn't want to say it. Because if you say it, then it devalues your asset. Now you're trying to move Aiyuk. They don't want to be pictured by the league as trying to move Aiyuk.
Right.
They want to be viewed as they have an awesome asset, and if you want to come get it, come get it. But they can pay him, and they can pay him. I mean, and as well as everybody in the chat knows the cap's about making choices. You can have Brandon Aiyuk, but you may not be able to have Debo and Kittle and Trent and other guys. You can have almost any singular player. So, we'll see the way it shakes out, but they are the other thing about the Silver report that was kind of interesting in the Chronicle is not only did they speculate as to, hey, you know what, Aiyuk is very much in play. He's available for the right price. The Niners want a first. Teams around the league say the Niners are asking for too much. Another GM says they may get a second-round pick and a player or another pick. But then they speculate that guys like, Brian Thomas Jr. or Adonai Mitchell or Ricky Pearsall, Xavier Worthy, Xavier Legette are players at the end of the first round, early second round, that they may opt to replace Aiyuk with. And that's really interesting. And then people say, well, trade Debo instead. According to Silver's article, Debo has been promised by the Niners that he will not be traded before, during, or after this year's draft. So he's here.
Well, and
and Kittle just renegotiated.
Yeah,
so Kittle's not going anywhere.
Well, and here's the thing. Debo wouldn't provide the immediate value that a guy like Brandon Aiyuk would. So,
right. And,
it's not just like they're doing that to Debo because they like him. They're also doing that to Debo because they know they can't get back what, they can't find a return that matches the investment in the player that they've already made.
And it sounds like at least they like 4 or 5 receivers. Now, Xavier Worthy's interesting because he went to Texas, and Kyle Shanahan has told me many times it's really important that you have that speed element to run off the coverage and create space underneath. Xavier Worthy is a space creator monster. I mean, he's the fastest guy we've seen. Brian Thomas is a stud. I mean, he is a monster. Xavier Legette, 6'3", 230, and runs in the 4.3s. Adonai Mitchell is really good. Pearsall's really good. So, and then there's a lot of speculation that John Lynch may go for Luke McCaffrey on day 3, So if you're going for, there's only 5 receiver spots. And if you have interest in Luke McCaffrey or Rice's kid, and John's kind of like, hey, I love bloodlines, and you're talking about receivers at the top, there's a lot of speculation that Aiyuk could be moved.
Well, and the other thing, Larry, that Daniel Jeremiah put out today is that, if he could describe or sum up his last 5 phone calls, he said, is that everybody's trying to move up for a tackle. So that could mean a wide receiver that you didn't expect to fall to 30 might be there. It also could mean that a quarterback that falls in this draft, and you do want a 5th-year option available to you on a quarterback should you draft them. I mean, you don't hear the phrase, the 49ers control the back of the first round very much, but they kind of do. And they might be the team that somebody comes knocking on the door of for 31 because they want that 5th-year option on a player. And, oh, by the way, I got some breaking news for you here, Larry, right now. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
I think the chances of Brandon Aiyuk getting traded just increased. Amon-Ra St. Brown and the Lions have just agreed to a 4-year contract extension, $120 million in new money with 77 guaranteed. Earning more than $30 million per season for the 4-year extension makes St. Brown the highest paid wide receiver in terms of annual average. The $77 million in guarantees is the highest among all wide receivers, leapfrogging Cooper Kupp's $75 million. The 2021 4th-round pick vastly outplayed his rookie deal, which was scheduled to pay him about $3.366 million in base salary. So Amon-Ra St. Brown just got cashed out in a way that Brandon Aiyuk is going to call his agent and say, yeah, around that is what I'm looking for. And those are all numbers that are probably too high to return to the 49ers.
Well, and it's then people, will come at you and say, hey, Aiyuk, TJ Hushmanzada was just on 95.7 talking about, hey, I mean, I know Brandon wants to be a Niner. Yeah, he wants to be a Niner, and he wants to get paid huge money. And, the question is, what does he want more? And it's come out a couple times that he wants the big bag more than he wants to stay with the Niners. So,
as he should. I mean, it's not like the kid's from San Francisco. This isn't the team he grew up rooting for. His parents aren't from here.
Yeah, and he's taken a shot at the Super Bowl a couple times.
Yeah, you get one chance at the mega deal at his position, and he feels like this is his chance. So I don't begrudge him that.
No, I'm not begrudging him, but my point is just that, like, people will come back and be like, Aiyuk wants to be here. Well, yeah, he wants to be here, but he wants to get paid. And the Niners love him and respect him and think he's a great player, but they've got to put together the best team they can at a price. So it's, if he doesn't get moved, people will be like, see, it was all about nothing. No, they're absolutely considering all their options, and they, trading him is an option and not trading him is an option. And we'll see what kind of, they're obviously their ask is significant. They're asking for a first round pick or at least a high second, or something thereof. And we'll see if there's a team that bites. I think there will be, because he's that good of a player.
Clara San Niner says, didn't Brandon Aiyuk grow up a Niner fan? Hey, even if he did, he scrubbed them right off of his Instagram account the minute that was the best business move for him to make, So Brandon Aiyuk, Brandon Aiyuk's love for the 49ers is directly attached to his ability to create generational wealth for his family. And it doesn't go any further than that.
Yeah, I mean,
wins.
He wants to be a Niner. There's no question in my mind.
Sure.
He wants to be a Niner, all things being equal, but all things are not equal.
Right.
And the Niners are staring at the Chiefs, who just won the Super Bowl after they kissed off Tyreek Hill. So, sometimes you have to figure out a way to make it work or not work. You got to make decisions, and you got to decide who's replaceable and who's not replaceable. We'll see. All I'll say is this. It won't bother me if they move him, but if they pull the Buckner-Kinlaw trade and it works out the same way, where they trade a great player and replace him with a solid but not spectacular player who never fulfills his potential, Green Bay, Detroit, other teams in the NFC will go right on by them. This is a crucial decision that they cannot fuck up. They have to get this decision right. And because if they move off of Aiyuk, who they know is damn good, and they get just an ordinary player or a player that's not great, that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt in a profound way. So,
Larry, I think it's
just got to make sure they get good players.
I think it's also important to point out, if Brandon Aiyuk were traded to Indianapolis, Jacksonville, or whoever, and now all of a sudden the 49ers have, 2 first rounders, right? Neither one of those picks could be a wide receiver. It's not like they will be moving up in the first round or trading Brandon Aiyuk for a player that now is definitely going to be a wide receiver. They still might go in a different direction, or think that the wide receiver depth in this draft will pay off for them on day 2 or 3 in a way that another edge or another offensive lineman or a corner might not be there for them on day 2 or 3. So it's not like Brandon Aiyuk traded, that draft pick is 100% going to be a wide receiver. It's not like that at all.
No, I mean, John Lynch has said, hey, look, we want to get better on the line of scrimmage. I think they need a defensive tackle. I think they need an offensive tackle. I think they need a guard. I think they need a center. I think they could use one more dynamic edge player. They need help, on both sides of the line of scrimmage. They need help on the perimeter at wide receiver, but they also need help at corner. They need help at safety. They could use a linebacker. They need a tight end. There's a number of needs here. So yeah, they could decide that, that they, to me, I think that 20th pick in the draft is not that much different than the 30th or 40th pick in the draft. I think that's where the draft kind of mushes together a little bit. And if I could get multiple second round picks, I'd probably choose that over a first round pick. Just simply because I think there's, you get 2, you could fill 2 holes. Maybe you could fill an offensive line and a defensive line. Maybe but I do think McCaffrey is in play for them later. And I do think that they've, I could see them drafting a couple receivers if they do move off of Aiyuk. But yeah, it doesn't mean that, if they trade him for the 18th pick, in fact, I would say if they trade him for the 18th pick outside of Brian Thomas, it's highly likely that they're going offensive line. I mean, the guy that to me would just be a monster offensive lineman is Latham, just because he's, if you're trying to build a fortress around Brock Purdy, you cannot bull rush J.C. Latham, the Alabama right tackle, big number 65. To me, and a lot of people think he's a guard long term, and we'll find out. I think he's a right tackle. He's just, you can't bull rush him. He's so big, he's so powerful. He's just such a wall that, that would be if you're trying to build a wall around Brock Purdy. J.C. Latham is a huge pillar in that wall. And
what about Zach Frazier, though? I mean,
I love Zach Frazier. I mean, to me, Damon, let's say you were being real, direct about your O-line. Let's just say, you know what, this is the O-line draft. You get, you move Aiyuk to Indy for the 15th pick or something like that. I'm taking J.C. Latham or Fuaga, Talieisi Fuaga. I'm taking one of those monster right tackles, and then at 31. Maybe I'm going Xavier Legette. Maybe I'm going Xavier Worthy, or maybe I'm going Zach Frazier, and I'm taking the plug and play center. If you could take Frazier and Latham and put them in front of Brock Purdy's going to be a much better football player.
So I don't know what Matt Miller is, he seems to be working on an independent, like, sort of flow chart who might be available that I haven't seen anywhere else. He said he had AI augmenting what the picks are going to be. And anyways, he had if this were to happen, Larry, in 2 picks, I think the 49ers would have won the first 2 days of the draft.
What has he got? No, he did what he called the greatest mock draft ever or something like that, or
something. He had Amarius Mims at 31, which, like, that's been my crush this entire draft. If you get
he's only given up like 9 pressures all year, and now he missed some time, but I mean, you're talking about a guy with 11-inch hands, 6'8", 340. My only question is he James Wiseman? Is he 6'8", 340, and that's why he plays offensive tackle, or is he really an offensive tackle? Because physically, he's exactly what you want.
Amarius Mims at 31, and he's got Zach Frazier at 63. I don't know how Zach Frazier makes it to 63 if he's as good as you and I have been talking about. If
he's got shorter arms, and there's and he's a center, but no, he's not falling to 63. I'll say this. I'd say it's 50-50 whether he's even there at 31.
That's kind of the way I'm looking at it too. But could you imagine Mims at 31, Frazier at 63? I mean, that would be worthy of a parade in its own right.
Well, I mean, it's if you can block for Brock Purdy and then he can go play action pass against you. I like my odds. He completed 84% in that situation, and it's a deep receiver draft. I mean, you can come back in round 2 or round 3. I mean, Malik Washington from Virginia is a small receiver, but he's a plug and play guy. In fact, before we get out of here, I've got the way you win in the draft is when you take guys who have awesome college production and then cross connect them with guys who have awesome workout numbers, because you got to have a body to play in the NFL. You can have great college production, but if your body's hurt, it doesn't work. So you got to have the guys who are awesome athletes cross connected with the guys who are productive. If you can get that intersection of production and top tier athleticism, you've got a chance to draft Jerry Rice. You got a chance to draft Jahmyr Gibbs. You got a chance to draft Sam Laporta. So I'm going to give you some players that sit inside that that intersection of awesome college production and awesome workout numbers before we get out of here. And to me, that's the hot spot. That's where you want to hit if you're a GM.
And you said this about, Mims. How much does he want it? And that's what you get in the interview. That's what you get when you bring a guy in for a visit. Are you talking to a guy who just happens to be big enough to have an NFL career, or are you talking to a football player? You know what I mean?
Right.
And there are certain guys who are just big enough to be here, and then there are football players, and you want a football player. As corny as that sounds, it's the absolute truth.
There's no question about it, Damon. You gotta I'm a football guy. And Damon, you and Lowry, you guys, I mean, you're into it, but you're not football guys like Trent Baalke. Oh, excuse me. Did I just lay one? Excuse me, everybody. Excuse me, but I'm a football guy, and football guys sometimes let off a little steam, if you know what I mean.
Another name that has been thrown around, I think, more in the last 24, 48 hours than we've seen in the 2 or 3 weeks getting up into this draft. I know that David Lombardi and Matt Barrows had their pick-by-pick kind of every round mock. Lombardi had Darius Robinson, the edge from Missouri, and he is really like on a lot of rumor mills right now. And there's a guy who fits that definition of football player. Like, he's a captain, he's a dog, 43 tackles, 8.5 sacks in the SEC, 35-inch arms, a lean 290, Larry. And this is something that you and I remember us talking about, looking at a bouncer in New Orleans when we were there covering the Super Bowl. They were just this dude. He wasn't a football player. It's just a guy just working the door. And he was every bit 6'9", 330, just gargantuan. Before he worked out, before he ate well. There's a difference between a guy who is like a 270-pound human who has worked himself out into peak condition frenzy to get to 290, and then there are just dudes who are 290. I didn't even try to be 290. I just am. I am shredded before a single push-up. And that's kind of who he is. He's rocked up.
I'm walking around with a Rochester Big and Tall gift card in my wallet at all times.
Yes,
that kind of guy.
Big human being before he tried to get bigger to impress NFL GMs. Just big to begin with. And that's what he is. And the reason why I've seen his name an awful lot is because since this has taken place in Detroit, there's an awful lot of Detroit buzz, and the Lions just had the greatest year in the history of their whole damn franchise, basically. And there's a lot of buzz. This draft is in fucking Detroit, for goodness sakes. And there are so many Lions fans saying that he's the pick at 30. So right before the Niners. He's a good player, Larry. I tell you, you watch some of his tape, you wonder if the guy he's playing against was the starter that day. Like, he gets off on guys and they look like they're still in their stances.
He's a great player. Yeah, he's interesting because is he a defensive tackle? Is he a defensive end? He's gigantic. He might be a little too big to be a defensive end at 295, but man, his movement's incredible. He was the practice player of the week at the Senior Bowl, voted on by the other players and coaches that were down there. There's a lot to like there. I mean, I was kind of wondering, like, do you bulk him up and make him 310 and push him inside and have him be an situational rusher from tackle, or do you lean him out, try to get him down to 280 and have him be maybe like a Bruce Smith coming off the edge? I love what I see with Darius Robinson. Now, some people think he's not special, but he's not dynamic enough coming off the edge, and he's a little undersized inside, that he's that classic tweener. But I love him. I kind of see Alden Smith.
Arms. That's a good thing to be.
I see like an Alden Smith without the turmoil and, maybe a little bit naturally bigger frame. But yeah, Darius Robinson, I mean, the Niners, Greg was talking about Chop Robinson last night from Penn State, and Chop's got some great numbers. He's fast, but he's a little undersized. And I don't know if that's what Kasarik is looking for. Darius Robinson is really nice, and I think you could put him opposite Bosa. The nice thing is they've got Leonard Floyd, but if you look at what's the best way to utilize Leonard Floyd, it's to utilize him the way the Buffalo did and maybe the Rams did, which was, isolate him on third downs as an edge piece. And maybe you play Darius Robinson as your first and second down defensive end opposite Nick Bosa, and you bring Floyd off the pine for third downs, and you move Robinson inside for your NASCAR all rusher package, which they did quite a bit last year. They moved Chase Young inside. So I do love Darius Robinson. Great, once again, great collegiate production, marries awesome workout numbers, and he's in that intersection.
Well, and if you don't want to think too hard about it and still put together a, if you want to have your most educated guess, you're not way off the mark by just betting defensive linemen. I mean, this is clearly how the 49ers think. You go back through their first round picks here, outside of Trey Lance, it's just defensive lineman, defensive lineman, defensive lineman. Wide receiver in the first round feels like almost, it's not going to happen anymore. It's not who they are. It's not how they believe a football team should be built. And we got enough data points here through enough drafts of the same two voices talking through them as to how they think. So maybe they've already tipped their hand. But when I look at it, man, I think you can like overinvest in a position. And I know that you can never have enough defensive linemen and that old cliche and whatnot. But to me, when I hear more edge rusher, it makes sense. But, Johnny Newton, D tackle from Illinois, like, okay, Johnny Newton might have been the right pick for sure. But then why did you spend all that money on Javon Hargrave? Why did you trade for Malik Collins? Why did you sign Jordan Elliott?
Yeah.
And then you're going to put a rookie defensive tackle as your fourth D tackle just on the depth chart the day he starts because he's never taken a pro snap. I mean,
but look at
who had that beast.
Who won the Super Bowl? Chris Jones.
Yeah.
Chris Jones. So if you can find Chris Jones, the Niners believe beyond, going back for multiple regimes, going back to, Michael Carter and Dennis Brown, Ted Washington. They've invested high picks in defensive linemen for a long time. Now they're looking to control things. They feel like an ordinary secondary can be, can look great if you have a great defensive line. I don't know. I mean, we've got examples of Brady and Mahomes and others getting the ball out quick and kind of devaluing your entire defensive line. But Bosa played great in the Super Bowl. He just didn't have a lot of help. They only got 3 sacks on Mahomes. I mean, I like
honestly Eric Armstead. Eric Armstead might have had the best Super Bowl along that defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, and they're to me, I got no problem with them. Emphasizing the defensive line. You got to be able to stop the run. You got to be able to rush the passer. You got to be able to impact the passer. So, I mean,
you can't scream the importance of a defensive line and leave your offensive line just kind of to fend for itself. I mean, I just think that any premise of how important a defensive line is quickly followed by how important an offensive line is. And the entire game of football, let's be honest, it's you win games on the line of scrimmage. Not just one side of that. You win games on the line of scrimmage. And the 49ers were good enough on the line of scrimmage to reach a Super Bowl, but not good enough to win that game. And I just think one more interior or tackle is the right way to go in this draft for the Niners. With all of their defensive mindset, I think that we've seen that addressed with who is already on your roster, who would, your free agent targets from this past free agent period. And now it's time to do something else instead of just quintupling down on defensive linemen. Your offensive line needs help. Your secondary needs help. And you might need a wide receiver.
Yeah. I mean, there's no question their offensive line needs help. But this is why I
feel like running backs just got to be off the board. Like if you look at your running back room right now and still say, I have to improve that, I don't think you do. I think your running back room is ready to roll, good to go.
You can get running backs that are dynamic on day 3 in this draft. I still love Blake Corum a lot from Michigan. I think he's really special. But, I could name you 10 running backs that are going to go from the 5th round or later who are very good running backs. I mean, guys that could come in and make an impact.
Right.
So running backs, there's a lot of running backs in this draft. And I do believe, if you're a run first play action pass team like the Niners are, you got to have running backs. So, and Elijah Mitchell, his contract's coming up. They could easily move off of him at some point. So I definitely would grab a running back in this draft, but I don't think it would be early unless, this was a more of a primary need, like for Dallas. If you're Dallas, you got to get a running back early. You got nothing. But if you're the Niners, I would say, you got McCaffrey. The other question is, maybe you love a running back in this draft, and maybe McCaffrey is part of your solution to cover for the loss Aiyuk if you move him. Maybe you instead of flexing out Christian once or twice a game, maybe you flex him out 10 times a game and use him as a receiver. I mean, God knows he's a dynamic receiver as well. So they've got options here for sure.
I really do think that Amon-Ra St. Brown contract extension might have just sealed Brandon Aiyuk's fate, don't you think?
Well, what's his age? He's getting 30 plus million a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is the neighborhood. I mean, the report from Ian Rappaport coming out of the combine was Brandon Aiyuk wants to wait until after all the receiver market gets set and all the receivers sign before he signs his deal. Why? Because he wants to get big time dollars, and he knows that the going rate, is going up, and that he could probably get $30 million from somebody. So, that to me, that right there said, okay, that goes beyond the Niners budget. They're going to quietly look to shop him. And that's what's happened. It's beyond their budget. They don't want to say so. They're at an impasse. They're never going to get to his price. And for that reason, I think he's going to be moved. So we'll see if they can get enough compensation. Now they want to take as little risk as possible. They want to make sure that a player that they love, they don't want to just trade him for a draft position and cross their fingers. They want to go on the clock and see if they can get somebody to flinch. And because of what he is, what is Brandon Aiyuk represent? He is the sure thing. All these guys, every guy in this draft from Caleb Williams on down is speculative. We don't know what they're going to do. Some do, some don't, some will, some won't. It just doesn't. There's a failure rate to draft choices. We know it. We saw it with the Kinlaw deal with Buckner. They traded Buckner for a pick, and they turned it into Kinlaw. Kinlaw didn't work out. Now you've given away a impact guy who just earned another new contract with Indianapolis. So they can't do that move again. They got to make sure that they get their guy. But I think it's going to come down on the clock. I mean, I would say this is the draft that you're, from the 10th pick on, you're going to want to watch very, very carefully, because I think somewhere in the line there, some NFL GM, Trent Baalke can't pick wide receivers. He drafted A.J. Jenkins. He doesn't know how to pick wide receivers. He's fired at the end of the year if Jacksonville doesn't make the playoffs. They've invested a ton into Trevor Lawrence. He hasn't done it yet. He doesn't have top tier receivers. They're very interested in getting him a top tier guy. So I just personally think that they could flinch. Indy could flinch. Washington could flinch. Pittsburgh could flinch. When I say flinch, I say give the Niners the compensation they seek for Aiyuk and get the sure thing. But this idea that, that the Niners, for sure Aiyuk's going to be here, and this is all this is just us looking for clicks and people who have too much time in their hands talking about something. No, this is what's going on behind the scenes, and I think there's a chance that he gets moved on Thursday night and maybe even Friday.
Let me ask you this, Lair. Let's say Indianapolis is the dance partner, and now you got 15 in the first round in play.
Right?
Do you think that you would need to trade Brandon Aiyuk and 31 for 15? Or
no.
Are you trading Brandon Aiyuk and now you got 2 first-round picks? Because if you could almost make that trade, I would.
You would have to trade Brandon Aiyuk if you wanted 5. Like if you wanted to get to where there's talk that the Chargers, who desperately need a receiver, they kissed off Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and they have nothing, and they're trying to win now, and they got Herbert, and they got nothing at wide receiver. They got Quentin Johnson, who sucked last year. So they don't have much. And Brandon Aiyuk would represent a sure thing and a great blocker in the run game, and they want to run the ball. So, so he's like the dream receiver in some ways for Jim Harbaugh. They're sitting at 5, Now, yesterday when I talked to Greg Papa, he was talking about Rome Odunze, and to me, that would be very disappointing if the Niners traded Aiyuk and 31 and got Rome Odunze. To me, I'm not a Rome Odunze fan. I know he's a good guy. He's got a great story. He's a good football player. I just don't see awesome. Malik Neighbors is awesome. Malik Neighbors. And if you could get Malik Neighbors, I would consider that. but still that's an awful lot considering the Niners have other needs, 31 and Aiyuk. But yeah, if you're just moving him for a mid first round pick, Jacksonville or Indy, I think you're keeping 31.
Well,
sure.
So if you were to do that, there's a part of me that would like to see that deal done today, because you are sitting in a much different universe with picks 15 and 31 than you are just in. Now you can get. Would you like to get into the top 8? Would you like whoever you want if you're willing to move 2 first round picks, right? So if were to be the scenario,
is there a player that, here, I'll give you the mock that I'm looking at, and I'll give you the top 8. You tell me if you want this. It goes Caleb 1, Daniels 2, Drake May 3 to New England, Marvin Harrison 4 to Arizona, Roma Dunze 5 to the Chargers, Malik Neighbors 6 to the Giants, Joe Alt 7 to the Titans.
There's your name right there, isn't it?
Joe Alt. You want Joe Alt?
Well, honestly, I've almost not watched Joe Alt because I just thought there's nothing for me to study. The first tackle in this draft.
He's a blue chip guy.
The universally agreed upon first tackle in this draft ain't going to be there for the Niners. Is he truly, the far, far and away, nothing to even discuss first tackle to be taken in this draft?
I think he is. But
is it Joe Thomas? Is it Joe Thomas 2.0?
I'm a little concerned about 6'9", to be honest, because that sometimes it's hard to kick out on speed rushers when you're 6'9". But he's thought to be the blue chip guy. I'm like you. I watch a lot of Notre Dame, so I've seen him, but I haven't studied him as far as because he's such a blue chipper.
I've kind of taken everyone's word for it. He's the man, so I assume there's nothing for me to even see because that man's not going to be there for the 49ers. So I've not done my due diligence on how great Joe Alt is. But if it's fucking Orlando Pace, yeah, okay, go get him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think it's Orlando Pace. I like Joe Alt. I think he's solid. But I think I don't think he's Orlando Pace. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. To me, I like Fuaga because he's nasty, and I like J.C. Latham because he's so big, so powerful, so unbelievable. Fashanu's interesting too from Penn State because he's an elite pass rusher. He really is. But I don't know if he's how great of a run blocker he is. He's kind of an ordinary run blocker.
I guess let me answer your very broad question with a very broad answer. There is a player's name who is number 1 on the 49ers draft board. I don't know who it is for sure. You don't know who it is for sure. Only John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan knows who that name is for sure. If you had 2 first-round picks, could you get that name? Because whoever you think is the best player in this draft, there is no wrong draft pick to pick him at, right? There really isn't. The player that you think is going to be loaded to bear and ready to go for you week 1 this year, I don't care where you get him. I don't get, the whole you could have had that guy 7 picks later. Well, you don't want to take that risk if this really is the guy that you want. You just go get him and be done with it. And so if Aiyuk were to be flipped 4-15 and you didn't have to include 31, I would almost like to do that business this afternoon. So by the time you get to tomorrow afternoon, you walk in with a fat stack before you even start playing poker. You know what I mean?
But here's the risk. Here's the risk of that. Then people start to speculate and start to, search around for who are the Niners interested in. And then you risk, people know they need a corner, a tackle, and a wide receiver, let's just say. If you trade into the middle of the first round, somebody easily jumps you for that and says, well, they want to tackle. We know the Niners are going tackle here. Who are they going? Teams can try to figure it out and then jump you. I think if you do it on the clock, then the element of surprise, is there. You don't have the ability to have somebody jump you. And when you're the 49ers, I mean, if you're the Titans, who the hell cares, what you do? Nobody's jumping you. But when you're a Super Bowl contender at the very top and you've got teams that are really hungry to get there, Detroit and Green Bay.
Right. No one's looking to help the Niners.
Nobody's looking to help the Niners, and everybody's looking at them as a viable, Super Bowl contender that you may want to jump. That's what, at the end of the first round, that's another one. It's like the Chiefs need a receiver. If they think the Niners are going Ladd McConkey, do they jump them for Ladd McConkey or jump them for Xavier Worthy or A.D. Mitchell or somebody like that? I could see the Chiefs doing that at the end of the first round. So, you don't want to be paranoid, but at the same time, I think there's value to doing it on the clock as long as you're thinking clearly.
Well, again, I just, this is the fun. This is where the drama is, right? The game of chess is totally dependent on the moves your opponent makes. And right now there are 30 opponents making moves before the 49ers can even touch a piece, a pawn on their own chessboard to move, unless they do something here with Brandon Aiyuk and get really aggressive. And this is why we are all going to be there tomorrow night. And this is why we would love for you, if you're just finding us, just joining us here, welcome to Wake Up. Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger. We're going to have a great wake up, obviously, on Friday morning. And then Friday afternoon, we're going to invite everyone to the Dubliner West Portal. Larry and I are going to be there around 4 o'clock. Right when the second round starts, we're going to be upstairs doing some broadcasting. We're going to be coming downstairs and hanging out with folks and taking some bar consent. Maybe we'll take a live poll on the air. What do you think of that pick? So instant feedback.
Are we going to do it like my old draft party where, we take shots for running backs and hookah hits for cornerbacks? And
you bring in the hookah?
We could. I mean,
Krueger hookah?
There you go. Hold. There you go. But yeah, no, we used to do it up big for the draft party with, we'd go beers, slam beers for quarterbacks. You had to, shots for D linemen. I mean, we would mix it up with the rules every year. But yes,
we should just bring Smiley Dan in and just make Smiley Dan pop a gummy for every pick that we really like. And by the time we get like 12 picks into the draft, he'll be face down in the back.
There you go. Business meetings out on the street corner. Klarsar says the Steelers just cleared $7 million in cap space. Interesting. Could that be for Brandon Aiyuk?
Hey, they were the very first team directly tied to Brandon Aiyuk and any sort of interested in trading for him rumors. Now Daniel Jeremiah is saying Jaguars and Colts are the names that he's most likely hearing being attached to that. And maybe that's got Pittsburgh thinking, all right, we got to get on this now. So,
yeah, I mean, and it'll be interesting to see. I would think the Niners would go offensive tackle there, but Brian Thomas is really an amazing receiver. So a lot of the mocks that I'm looking at have Brian Thomas there at 20, especially if the big factor as far as Brian Thomas being there at 20, if that was the guy that they viewed as a replacement for Aiyuk, is Penix going in the first round? Is Bo Nix going in the first round? If they are, that's going to push, some guys down the board a little bit, and that could be where the Niners pounce. So it's going to be a very interesting draft. I love Brian Thomas Jr. He's 6'4", he's 210 pounds. He runs in the 4.3s. He scored 17 touchdowns. You could make a compelling argument he's better than Neighbors. Now, I like Neighbors better. I think Neighbors is a ridiculous speedster, monster, mismatch. Awesome. I mean, to me, he's a little bit more dynamic, but both those guys.
You like him more than Marvin Harrison Jr., don't you?
I do. I like Neighbors. A lot. I watched LSU a lot, and, to the point where I'm not sure about Jaden Daniels because, he had Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. So, those are better receivers than 10 NFL teams have. So was that why Daniels had the big year this year? So, but, that one, if you could get – the thing about that is you could get a better receiver than Aiyuk potentially, and now it's a risk because you never know, but and save all that money. You got a guy on a rookie contract for the next 4 years. And now you can afford to do some other things. So, we'll see. We'll see. But I definitely believe that Aiyuk knows that Aiyuk and the Niners are in total communication. I think John Lynch, because of his relationship with Aiyuk's agent, he absolutely knows how, what Aiyuk wants. And Aiyuk's camp, I think, knows exactly what the Niners are willing to pay and the scenarios that exist out there.
Well, and this is going to sound a little candy-ass, but I think it's true. I think that the 49ers will want to do right by Aiyuk. Like trading him doesn't mean they don't like him.
There's nothing candy-ass about that. I mean, doing right by players is a good way to be popular with players. And we're in the era of free agency. So you never want to be viewed as sticking it to your players because the word gets around the league. It's a small league.
I know that you had a list of, a whole bunch of names that you really haven't talked about. These are day 3 guys, 5th, 6th, 7th rounders. This is some seriously granular analysis, but that's what you do, brother. So you want to give us your list of, here's a few names to keep your ear out for.
This is not a day 3 list. This is, I just went and I wanted to see who really performed at the combine and then find of those guys that really performed at the combine, who really was productive in college football. And then that intersection, I call it the Aldon Smith intersection.
Okay. So you're starting with combine data and then going to the tape.
No, I'm starting with tape and finding out who's really, really good. And then taking the really, really good players who then went to the combine and showed that they're really, really great athletes. And when you're a really great football player and then you're tested out as a really high-end athlete, that intersection is where I want to live as a GM. You know what I mean?
All right, so hit me with your names.
All right, here we go. Tyrese Knight. Tyrese Knight, he's a linebacker from UTEP, okay? This guy had 140 tackles this year, 15 tackles for loss. He's a 3-year starter for UTEP. He's an incredible. He ran a 4.63 40, which is good but not spectacular. But then when you look at him on film, you see this unbelievable speed. And then when I went and cross-connected it to the numbers, this guy had the second best 10-yard split of any linebacker in the entire draft at 1.54, which is, Brock Purdy-esque. So in other words, this guy's really, really quick in a short area, and he was incredibly productive, and he played at UTEP, and he's projected to go, probably day 3, maybe
having someone ready to play for Dre Greenlaw is going to be
Tyrese Knight.
All right.
You want him. Okay, here's another one. Mohamed Kamara. He ran a 1.58 10-yard split, third best among all defensive ends. He did 23 reps on the bench at 225. He's one of the most productive defensive ends in all of college football. That guy is going to be Colorado State. Colorado State defensive end Mohamed Kamara. He is that cross connection of crazy athlete, unbelievable collegiate production. You want that guy. Okay, he's in that subsection. Another defensive end, and this one's even further down the board. This guy's an amazing steal. Javon Solomon, defensive end, Troy State in Alabama, a tiny little school in Alabama. He had 23 reps, 6th best among all defensive ends. He had a 1.66 10-yard split. He led all of college football this year with 16.5 sacks. Javon Solomon, you want somebody coming off the edge, and you want to get him in round 3, 4, 5 in that range. Javon Solomon from Troy, going to be a major steal. Shaw Smith Wade, cornerback. Yesterday, Guy Haberman, who covers a lot of the Pac-12, does a lot of announcing, hosts the studio show on the Pac-12 network for the Pac-12 network, talked about how he loves this kid. He's a Washington State corner. He had, he's moderate size, but unbelievable player. And then at the combine, he was second with 18 reps of 225. So he's enormously strong. And then you watch it on film, and he also had the 6th best 3-cone drill and he's an incredibly productive corner.
From?
He lacks size. Washington State. Chris Smith, Shaw Smith Wade. Shaw Smith Wade is how
Shaw
they pronounce
Smith Wade. All right.
Yep.
You got like a guy with 3 last names.
Yeah, exactly. Malik Mustafa, safety, Wake Forest. 22 reps on the bench, first among all safeties, enormously strong. When you flip on the film, this guy is detonating on people. He's blowing people up. He's John Lynch. John Lynch had such a smile on his face when I said, John, you were the hammer. You were a thumper back there. Are you looking for thumpers at safety? Are you looking for coverage guys? And he smiled, but he's looking for thumpers, man. He loves hitters, and he's going to love that kid. Here's another one. Elijah Jones, cornerback, Boston College. Very, very good corner for Boston College. Second in the vertical jump at 42.5-inch vert. And he had 5 interceptions this year. He's gotten big-time player. I mean, just a big-time player. Elijah Jones. He's a good corner, 6'1" corner from Boston College, and he's just got that lower body. For corners, you're looking for that vert because you want them to go up down the field in a crowd and high point the ball, take it away from receivers. So vertical matters. Elijah Jones, Boston College. I'll give you another one. Malik Washington from University of Virginia. This guy had so many 100-yard days. If they played 12 games, he had like 1,100-yard days. One of the most productive receivers in all of college football. He's 5'9", but then he had the second best vertical at 42.5 inches. He had a 1.53 10-yard split, which was 15th among all wide receivers. He ran 4.47. This guy had 110 receptions. That was first in all of college football. So Malik Washington. And then tight end wise, a lot of people talking about different guys and replacements for Kittle. Ben Sinnott, the tight end for K-State, very productive tight end at K-State. Then he had a 40-inch vertical, which was first among all tight ends. He had a 6.86 3-cone, which was first among all tight ends. Great agility. And he had a 10-yard split of 1.59, which was 6th. And he's super big and productive. So, and then Michael Hall Jr., who I've talked about a few times on this show, fastest tackle in the draft, 299 pounds, ran 4.76, led the nation this year in pass rush win rate from the defensive tackle position, and then showed in the workouts that he is a freaky mover, very quick, very fast, very explosive. And, he's an interior rusher, and he's productive and crazy athletic. So there's more than that, but those are the guys that kind of jumped out to me as just, they got both, right? They got the look what this guy put up numbers wise at the combine. But then when you roll back and say, don't fall in love with the combine and then go cross connect it to college. There's people that this guy was awesome at the combine. Yeah, but he can't play dead. I'm taking guys that absolutely are great players and then finding those numbers at the combine that show off the charts athleticism. And then those are the guys that you want, because when you show up in camp, all you got is the guy that you drafted and his athletic ability. So you better, you can draft a bunch of college all-stars, but if they lack NFL top end athleticism, when you put them on the field with your team, they're not going to look that good. If you can find guys who are productive and have top level athleticism, when you get to camp and they go on the field with the rest of your team, you got Jair Brown would have been on this list last year. He was on the Feldman freak list. He power cleans tons. He lifts tons, but he was also the MVP of the Rose Bowl. He had 2 picks, a sack, a forced fumble. And sure enough, what's Jair Brown shown in year 1? That he's a damn good football player and a really good athlete.
Make him play.
He can play.
Speaking of safety help, Justin Simmons is still available, is he not?
He is. And there's a lot of talk that Budda Baker may get traded. And by the way, a safety that I'm really interested in, I had him on the show yesterday, Sione Vaki from Antioch, who went to Antioch High School with Najee.
Sione Vaki from Antioch?
Yeah, from Utah, University of Utah. But he's the youngest of 11 children. And this guy is a safety, a running back, and a special teams return man. And I interviewed him yesterday, and man, it's just the Niners have met with him like 6 or 7 times.
So he knows how to fight for that last slice of pizza too. If you're
Yeah,
11.
but I mean, this is a. I think he's got one of. Lynch told me that the Niners have 16 gold helmet designations this year. That's their highest designation. That means it doesn't mean you're going to be the superstar. Braden Willis was a gold star. Trey Lance was a gold star. But that means you're everything that they want from a character standpoint, from a physical standpoint, from a football player standpoint.
They really like you.
You're their creme de la creme. I think Sione Vaki might be on that list just because he's productive, but he's also a hell of a guy. And the Niners are going to be looking for safety help, and Mustafa and Vaki would be fun.
Can I ask you a very inside baseball question?
Sure.
How did you get that interview? Did anyone with the 49ers help you arrange that interview?
No, his agent, because the kid's local.
Yeah.
Actually, Mike, to be totally honest and transparent, my good friend, I don't know if you know him, but Miles Gundy. Do you know Miles Gundy?
I think I've heard that name before, but I don't know.
He was
him.
a KMBR intern.
Okay.
He was a KMBR intern, and he's just a buddy of mine, a young guy who really, really sharp guy. And he texted me the other day. He's like, "Hey, Krug, I'm buddies with Sione Vaki's agent, and Sione's from Antioch, and the agent's local, and he's listened to you on the radio, and he, I can give you his number if you want to have him on the show." I said, absolutely. So he gave me his number. I reached out to the agent. We picked a time, and we had Sione on yesterday, and he was awesome, man. He was just
again, if the Niners had gone about helping you arrange that interview in some way, maybe they're trying to be like, well, okay, so Krueger is going to kind of get everybody conditioned for Sione Vaki being a 6th rounder here. And
the Niners would have no interest in it because if anything, they probably don't like the fact that I've revealed that they have interest in this prospect. But I mean, what is somebody going to trade? I mean, if he was a 1st-round pick, it'd be one thing. Sione, I think, is more like a 5th-round pick, maybe a 6th-round pick. It could be, I think that's his sweet spot, round 5, round 6. I don't think anybody's jumping the Niners in round 5 or round 6 to get the Utah safety. But
big run on Savakis in the 5th round. So go get yours. Go get yours.
But it is, I'll say this, and I've talked about this before with you and others. This is the part I do enjoy. I do enjoy talking to the prospects, getting to know them, talking to the players in the locker room, getting to know them, their process, how they see football, how they see their teammates, and then bringing that through YouTube, right to the fans. And so you can hear you can hear Christian McCaffrey in his own words. You can hear Luke McCaffrey in his own words, and you can decide if you're invested in that player or not. And I think it's real value because, you know what, everybody wants to buy a jersey of a player for a different reason. Sometimes you want to buy a jersey of a player because he's the best player on the team. Sometimes you want to buy a jersey of a player because he went to your college. I mean, you're big fans of Trace Jackson Davis. That has a lot to do with the fact he went to Indiana. So it's just, it's really when you see somebody with a jersey, it's about relatability. Totally. And like for me, if I was buying a jersey, I'd buy a Dre Greenlaw jersey. Why? Because I can relate to Dre Greenlaw. And so that's what he's one of my favorites. So it's all about relatability. And that's all I'm trying to do is interview some of these guys and give the fans, some content. And maybe if you find a new Niner super relatable and you want to buy his jersey, that's cool. I like that. We will hopefully be meeting the newest San Francisco 49er tomorrow, or at least learning his identity. 31, 63, and 94 are the first 3 picks that the 49ers have right now. And then I tell you what, Larry, I mean, obviously part and parcel of winning any draft is you want to do well with your premium picks. 31, 63, and 94 are all very, very important. But whether the 49ers win or lose this draft, I think in a lot of our minds, is going to be what they do with those 3 4th-rounders. 4th rounder is where, all your homework really needs to start paying off. There are starters available in the 4th round of drafts. The 49ers have found starters in 5th, 6th, obviously the extreme example of Purdy being the 7th rounder, but there are players aplenty in this draft. There really are. And what they do with those 3 4th rounders will probably be the difference in
Are you walking away saying that the 49ers deserve a high letter grade, or is it, B minus, C plus? Those 3 4th-round picks, I think, are just huge.
Well, and I've heard lots of people go, they should parlay all their 4th-round picks. Look, the draft is speculative. There's a failure rate. I guarantee you that somebody the 49ers pick this weekend is going to be a bust.
Yeah. Won't even
almost
make the team.
Guarantee you. There's going to be a bust. They're going to pick somebody that they think's good, and he's not going to be any good at all. So why, since there's a failure rate, wouldn't you want more picks? People were like, well, they've got 10 picks, and there's not 10 spots on the roster for, you're looking at it the wrong way.
Right. Bring them in, work them out, get them into training camp, see with your own 2 eyes.
If I could, every team's going to bring in a roughly 20, 25 guys. Some of those guys are going to be undrafted. Some of those guys are going to be draft picks. You want as many bites of the apple as you possibly can get. And if you wind up cutting a guy, I'd rather draft some guys. I'd rather swing for home runs and get lots of picks and know I'm going to strike out a few times. That would be my philosophy. Swing for home runs. Don't go for guys. I'm going for a guy who could be our backup tight end in a blocking role. No, go draft a great running back who's, that you think could be a star, but he may not be big enough, or he may not be this enough, or may not be that. Go draft a great defensive end, but he's maybe runs a little hot, or he's had some problems with the law, or go find great players and swing for the fences and take home run cuts. And if there were people in the Niner war room, according to the people that I've talked to, that were pushing for like backup, offensive linemen at Mr. Irrelevant pick. And the Niners said, no, Shanahan wanted to go with Purdy. That was more of a swing for the fences kind of a thing. They thought they saw something in Purdy. They were right. Okay. So swing for the fences, take home run cuts, acknowledge you're going to strike out. And if if I get to the top of the 6th round and somebody's like, I got to have this player, I'll give you 3 7th-round picks for my 6th-round pick. I'll do it. I'd rather have 3 7th-round picks. Why? Because that's 3 bites of the apple that, you can find somebody that somebody else missed. And let's be honest, the Niners have been ordinary on day 1, ordinary on day 2, and extraordinary on day 3. So why wouldn't you want, 5 picks in the 7th round if you feel like you could get, players that you can make your team or potentially could be stars if things break right. So that's my philosophy. Other people, it's funny. My buddy used to scout for the Raiders, and he used to tell me all these Al Davis things. And he used to say Al Davis sometimes would ridicule scouts and be like, you guys want to get a single. I'm swinging for the fences. I want home runs. So Al Davis wanted rare people. He wanted, Sean Jones and, James Jett and, guys that had freakish 40 times. And, Greg Papa was saying that Al would have loved Xavier Worthy, the 4.21 burner from Texas.
There's a point where Al was just drafting 40 times.
Al loved the rare human being. And he drafted, and sometimes he hit, and he lost the fastball late, and he drafted some terrible players late. But he swung for the fences, and I do admire that. Go for the home run.
Yeah, look, here is it's back in the 10-19 time frame. Leon Sandcastle, if you can find it and put it up, Larry. Leon Sandcastle proposes a question here. Damon and Larry, if Adam Peters calls and offers 36-40 and a 3rd and a 5th for Aiyuk in 2025, yes or no? Yeah.
Why don't we put it up here?
Adam Peters calls. He offers.
Who's the
40? Leon Sandcastle is the name.
Oh, here it is.
10:19 a.m. There it is. Leon Sandcastle. Damon and Larry, if Adam Peters calls and offers 36-40 and 2 25ers, a 3rd and a 5th and 225 for Brandon Aiyuk, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. If you can turn Brandon Aiyuk into 4 draft picks, I think that the 49ers would absolutely make that trade. I also think you'd have an awful lot of people saying, Adam, you gave way too much.
Yeah, I would do that trade for 36-40 and Jahan Dotson. I really would. Dotson would give you a receiver, a young receiver who's been kind of ordinary in the first couple of years, but he has good ball skills. He had a good day against the Niners at Levi's one day. If I could get a guy like Jahan Dotson, who Adam Peters did not draft, and, the only question there is they have, scary Terry McLaurin, and, they got to pay him. But, I mean, they got cap room for days. If they feel like they can pay McLaurin and Aiyuk, I mean, in some ways you're helping a team in your conference that's trying to build up and win the Super Bowl. You're giving them a piece that they can use right now. But I would do it because 36-40, I mean, you might be able to turn that into Zach Frazier and Xavier Legette. And, would I like to have one more pick there? I'm a day 3 or like something like that. But I mean, think about if you could get 36-40 and Jahan Dotson for Aiyuk.
You'd do that.
And you could turn 36 into Michael Hall or Zach Frazier and 40 into Michael Hall. Now you've added impact center, impact defensive tackle, and Jahan Dotson. And you also potentially could get a guy like, Christian McCaffrey's brother, Luke McCaffrey, late. I do think they're going to go after Luke McCaffrey. I really do.
Right. Of all the related progeny, you got McCaffrey going over Rice and Owens.
Well, Owens, I think, is for sure going to be in camp with the Niners because I don't think he'll be drafted. And I think, he was at the Niner Local Pro Day. He's a Bay Area kid. I think he grew up in Pleasanton. So, yeah, I mean, and he's, Lynch commented how he looks like Owens. He did. He's big and he's strong and he's fast and he's intriguing and he's raw and he's probably going to be a practice squad guy. But I could see Owens' kid being in camp. Rice's kid, I think, goes early, more like 3rd round. I mean, if they traded Jawan Jennings, I could see Rice's kid being a fit. But I could see them going for Gore for sure on day 3 because I think Frank Gore's kid is good. He's a good running back, and I think that will be the neighborhood they're looking for a running back. And Frank's in the personnel department for the Niners. So he's one of their scouts.
I think it would be a mistake to be looking to address your running back room before your 3rd day. I really do. That's
third, but he would be a 3rd day guy. I mean, he's like a 7th round guy or an undrafted guy. He's not going in the 5th round. And if he is, good, God bless the team that drafted him. But I think he's a 7th round guy. But I mean, here's the thing. There's a lot of sleeper running backs. I mean, Armani Bailey from TCU. I mean, he's freaking amazing. And then they're thinking he's going to go in the 6th or 7th round. So this is an annual thing now. Running backs, there's so many of them. They're not valued in the NFL. There's at least 5 or 6 really good running backs that are projected to go like late 6th round or undrafted. So, I love Blake Corum and I would go for Corum if I could get him, but I understand the people that say, hey, wait on the running back because you can get a great one late, because you really can.
Have you got let's end the show here, Larry, with a little negativity before we get into some supers. Is there anyone that you look at as a projected 1st rounder that you're already thinking, nope, that guy ain't gonna make it? I'll tell you, I'm gonna fade the entire world right here. JJ McCarthy, I think, has Jim Harbaugh running a hype machine for him. That is, and just the Michigan hype machine about all the players in this draft. I think JJ McCarthy might be among the least impressive of them. I never watched Michigan and thought, oh, this is a team that's got a quarterback that's just killing it out there. It just does. I don't get it. I don't get this fascination with, oh, JJ McCarthy might be the best quarterback in this draft. Really? I'd be stunned.
Yeah, I mean, he won a lot. But it's hard, the hardest thing to evaluate is the quarterback versus what's going on around the quarterback. I'm not a Caleb guy. He's going 1. So I'm not a Caleb guy. I watched SC lose a lot of games. I saw his pro day. I saw the way through the ball. His ball wobbles tons. He's got some great athleticism.
He's never really faced the music of criticism. Like if
There's
the
something wrong there too with the nail
if
polish and all the.
if USC had a bad game, Caleb Williams was nowhere around a podium afterwards for the most part. Like
The crying, the emotional outbursts. I mean, I like Michael Penix. They played in the same conference. Penix was better. So I like Penix.
I'm a Penix guy too. Again, it's that Indiana connection, right? But
there's other guys. I mean, I really don't like Jordan Morgan. I mean, Jordan Morgan, I watched his film. He got bull rushed constantly by Pac-12 edge rushers. He's got shorter
tackle.
He's got shorter arms, so they probably project him to guard. And if you're getting bull rushed by Pac-12 edge rushers, Chris Jones is going to, throw you into, the quarterback's lap. So an underpowered guard is what I think Jordan Morgan is, and he gets projected as a first-round pick based on, tackle. He's going to play tackle. I don't see that at all. I mean, I really don't. To me, and Tyler Guyton is another one. He's huge. He's 6'7", 330 or whatever. He looks the part. Man, I don't see it. I mean, he rises up out of his stance. He loses all of his power. He doesn't have much anchor against bull rush. He played right tackle. He doesn't finish. He blocks and then he stops blocking. He doesn't look like he wants to hurt anybody. To me, Tyler Guyton, don't love him. Don't love him.
All right. What do we got starred? What do we got in terms of supers here, Larry? What have you selected and put aside for us here at the end?
There we go.
John saying, would you trade a for sure receiver for a rookie who Kyle does not like receivers and never has to do it? I don't understand your take. Well, I think it's as simple as this, John, that I agree with you. There has not been an awful lot of rookie impact offensive players throughout the entire Shanahan regime, but it doesn't mean you stop looking for them. And Brandon Aiyuk is just now at a price point, which probably means it's time to, it's a gots to walk away, and they don't want to again, but it's a cap casualty. Casualty is a way to describe something tragic here happened. It's a shame that they can't go on with Brandon Aiyuk in perpetuity, especially with Brock Purdy on the rookie deal, and you think that everything else can fit in. But again, I did a video. The Brock Purdy economy has already been spent on this team. It's why you got Bosa and Warner and Kittle and Trent Brown and Juszczyk and and Debo and all these other players that, appear in more Pro Bowls together than any other football team since the Pro Bowl. Like, that's an expensive team to keep it together. And it looks like Brandon Aiyuk is just the odd man out. And there's also the trend of saying goodbye to that wildly priced wide receiver that good teams are showing might be the way to go. Just happened in Kansas City. So,
to quote the great Cleveland Farrell, if you're afraid, get a dog. Scared money don't make money. I look at it that. I mean, you can't look at that as just because Kyle played George Kittle. I thought George Kittle played pretty well as a rookie, but I understand what you're saying. And it's not. This is the Niners want Aiyuk, but it's about the cap. And you got to make, decisions that are difficult. So I understand what you're saying. There is a risk involved. Yeah, if you trade Brandon Aiyuk and you draft Ladd McConkey, and Ladd McConkey is what I think he is, which is a good-handed slot receiver who's really fragile, and he goes across the middle, gets crunched by some linebacker, and is out 9 weeks and never really runs across the middle with the same vigor ever again, and just always is this hurt guy, and Aiyuk goes to whatever team and makes the Pro Bowl. Yeah, you're not going to the Super Bowl. You're, it's risk. There's risk involved.
And look, John, there's an awful lot of risk also involved in a team walking away from its best wide receiver while it's knocking on the door of a Super Bowl. In the history of football, that hasn't happened very often. So you're right to be suspect of this. You're not incorrect when it doesn't sit well with you either physically or logically. Like, I get it. I think that your regret over having to trade Brandon Aiyuk, if that's indeed what happens, is well founded. But let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. And again,
You know what?
The price of wide receiver business went up today with Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah. And you know what? Just because your ex-girlfriend burns you. Okay. So what, are you never going to go on another date again? You know, I mean, well, sometimes you gotta get off the wall if you want to dance. There's my prom
I like
advice. It. If you want to dance, get off the wall.
Larry just sitting on the edge of his bed, feet crossed, kind of dangling up behind him like this.
She burned me. She burned me. I don't want to ever meet anybody ever again.
Twisting the phone cord. Does he love me? Does he? What else we got here? This is from Oli Keanu saying character is the attribute the 49ers love. It's greater than talent. I mean, obviously, you really good guys only without talent have no chance to make it in the NFL. You're looking for a combination. But yeah, character is non-negotiable. Character is how hard you work when no one's looking.
And I think he's kind of ripping the Niners there. I think he's basically saying that they love character guys more than they love talented guys. Here's the thing.
I mean, I don't know.
We don't. What do we care if the guy's what do we care if the guy's a bad guy? But it's like, hey, I don't care if your company hires bad guys. Well, I do because I work at my company. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I got to be around these bad guys.
And they're likely to self-destruct. And that self-destruction can take everything that your entire team is working for and get it off, kilter a little bit. Look at what Brandon Alden Smith put the 49ers through, or vice versa, by saying that you as a player mean more to us than a person. So get out there and play, and then we'll send you to rehab. I mean, that was not a moment of glory for the York family with that decision.
Probably Harbaugh's call or Balky's call, to be honest.
It might have been. It might have been. And I wonder if they make that same decision in the world in which we now live in as opposed to back then. I wonder. Fame and fortune can be a really toxic mix to some players.
Well, the NFL, I mean, let's be real about this too. The NFL, if you're a quarterback and you've got great money coming in, that's one thing. But a lot of these, the NFL is like demanding that you live on the edge. It's like you're going to play your body is your deal, and you better throw your body around with reckless abandon, or you're not going to make the team.
Right.
And then when you make money,
thinking out of you and just replace that with instincts, which means that you're reacting more than you're thinking, which is a good way to get in trouble.
Well, and then also, you're living on the edge. There's nothing guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed. And you got to fly around, and then you make bonus money. You get a bunch of money up front. Then you got to invest it right. And you got to spend it correctly. And I mean, it's life in the fast lane for young guys. You start making a lot of money. You start buying toys and doing stupid things with your money. There's just, you need to have you need to have a plan. You need to have, now at least they have the rookie seminar, and they talk to these guys and be like, hey, look, this is what you do. This is how you handle your money. This is how you handle, it's like if you start spending money at the highest rate that you ever earned money, and then suddenly it all goes away, you got nothing. So it's just life in the fast lane. It's violent. It's fast. A lot of times guys leave the game with their body broken, their head broken. They got to find a second opportunity. I mean, it's not easy. And they're now starting to recognize that and doing right by the players, and at least educating them on the potential issues that they're going to run into as young players making money for the first time.
Look at it this way. If you have a son at home and you can choose a professional career for them, make them golfers. Okay.
Yeah.
Football is unforgiving. It's a cruel business. It wears dudes down. It shaves years off the back end of your life for real.
Yeah.
And that's
chews you up and spits you out.
It does. It absolutely does. So there you go. I mean, that's pretty much the show today. We have been spending the last month setting you up for tomorrow's first round. And we look forward to the first round. I know Larry and I are going to be doing, are we going to go to live together as the pick happens, Larry? A little reactive. What do you want to do tomorrow? And then we want to invite everybody Friday at 4:00 to join us at the Dubliner West Portal. Larry and I are going to be upstairs in the pool room, and we're going to be doing some broadcasting from up there, some shaking hands and kissing babies, although no babies are allowed in the Dubliner. It's a bar. But come on through. Hopefully have a little drink, say hello. Larry and I are going to be looking forward to meeting everyone and seeing everyone. The Dubliner is just a great bar. So we'll see you there 4:00 on Friday. If you can make it, we hope you can.
Yeah, I mean, as far as, coverage of the draft, on day one, I'll be watching the draft as soon as there's any Niner news, revelations, rumors, trades throughout round one. I'll be going live. I won't be going live, but I'll be doing some videos. And then after the 49ers draft whoever they draft or make whatever move they make, I'll do a video on that and possibly go live as well with a live stream immediately after the draft. And just kind of playing it by ear. We're gonna stay, the same way that Lynch and Shanahan got to be able to think on their feet and stay nimble. We got to think on our feet and stay nimble. So we'll be doing the same kind of thing, and I'm looking forward to it.
Fluid coverage is what we're both offering here. So please like and subscribe to both of these channels. Supporting these channels by supporting the sponsors that support us is a great way to do it. But just liking, subscribing, the super chatting, of course, very generous, what always helps. But just by liking and subscribing, you're doing an awful lot to help this show grow. And I can't wait to see what this show looks like by the time we get to week one. Larry, it is always a pleasure to sit down and do this with you. Again, I know that I offered up a little promise of a sphere review, and I'll just say this. The world of concert going is about to be split into two camps. Those who have seen a concert at the Sphere and those who have not. If you've seen a concert at the Sphere, you have seen the future and you have heard the future. It is the greatest sound that has ever been delivered to me at a concert of any type, any venue, anywhere. And visually, it's indescribable. It's indescribable. Imagine the biggest movie theater, IMAX theater you've ever seen. That comes nowhere close to the 600,000 square foot screen that they have in there. You walk in and you're like, no, it can't be this big. And it is. And it goes around you the whole way. I mean, to the point where it is beyond your peripheral vision. It is the ultimate planetarium. And it's the greatest rock show experience I have ever been to. And kids, I've been to a lot of concerts.
Hot in there, cool. What's the temp?
Everything is completely comfortable, pristine conditions. The lines to the bathroom are all dealt with perfectly. The lobby is awesome. It's so new. It's so clean.
Waitresses serving drinks.
No, it's not that. You got to go out and get it. But it's 18,000 people sitting in an amphitheater. And the higher up you are, the better your seat is because you get to take in the whole thing. It's very, very special. I cannot recommend to anyone who checks the box of I like going to concerts. And I insist that you get to the Sphere as fast as possible. I walked out of there on night 2 telling Jillian, I would pay $300 to come in here and see my least favorite band of all time. Like, what's the least interesting concert I could? New Kids on the Block are playing the Sphere. You know what? Fuck it. I'll do it. I'm going to hate the music, but I can't wait to see what this looks and sounds like.
Did you see Three Lows comment here? He says, I hear they're making a bullet train to Vegas. That's a bad idea.
That would be awesome and scary all at the same time.
Invader 49 says, have a drink on me. There you go.
Thank you very much.
Dusty Gold says H2O on the rocks for Larry. Yeah.
Water on the rocks. Larry can do better than that.
Seriously.
Larry can do better than that.
I can get it rolling when I need to,
I tell you, Tommy, I'm going to the Sphere. I'm going to go see a Grateful Dead at the Sphere. This is fantastic. I heard Damon Bruce say that, it's a visually stunning bouquet of graphics you've never even seen before. I'm doing it. You know, what I know about the sphere is that it's round. It's round. I've heard it's round, Tom. You know, I'm thinking about going to a concert there. Here's the list. Pick one. Pick one. Maybe we'll go. We'll go together. We'll bring Tate. It'll be great.
Forget it. You know what? Don't go.
I'm not driving the Miata. I'm going to go to the Miata. I don't care. It's a desert. It's going to be hot. Why not? I put the top down.
Don't go to the Sphere. Join us at the Dubliner West Portal on Friday for rounds 2 and 3 of the draft. Do that. That'll be the show of a lifetime.
Why the hell would I go to the Sphere when I could go to the Dubliner with two football guys and really talk football? And you were talking about round 2 and round 3 of the NFL draft. And you know what? I get a feeling, and I don't know for sure, you know what I'm saying, Damon and Lowry, but I got a feeling maybe John Lynch is going to trade with a guy named Trent Baalke and maybe get himself a linebacker. And I just feel that way because, John and I see football the same because we're both football guys.
Well, what about Zay Jones? Is Zay Jones a bridge too far? Can we get the deal done? Are we getting Zay Jones? Because I heard you're not coming off as Zay Jones here, Trent.